Grading can turn a $20 card into a $200 card, or it can waste your time and money. It's more than just centering, surface, edges, and corners. It's about math, timing, and psychology. Let's data dive.
Today's Market Movers video is sponsored by Whatnot. Whatnot has live auctions of all kinds of sports and trading cards every day and night, starting at just $1 for packs, boxes, breaks, singles, and more. It's a ton of fun, and if you scan the QR code on your screen or use the special link in our show description below, you'll get $15 in free credit when you sign up for Whatnot.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Market Movers video. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and one of the questions that I get asked very often by people trying to learn the ropes in the sports card hobby is, should I grade my cards? And obviously condition matters when it comes to what grade the card will get. It's a given that you don't want to send in cards in poor condition for grading unless maybe they're super iconic vintage cards. But if you want a full breakdown of how I evaluate the condition of cards, watch my video called How to Evaluate and Grade Cards for Profit. But there's more to the story that I want to share with you today if you want to make sure it makes financial sense to grade your cards. Before I do that, I want to give you some important disclaimers. 1, this is not financial advice. 2, grade whatever cards you want for your PC. If you like your cards graded, go for it. Today's video is about how to ensure you won't be wasting your money. And this video isn't really going to focus on vintage because vintage can be its own beast because a wide range of grades can be valuable. So I'll be mostly focused on modern cards today. And finally, I'll be looking specifically at PSA grading and pricing because they have the best resale value, the most population report data, and the most sales volume. So when we're using Market Movers, we want to see trends and transactions, and that's why I'm using PSA. If you prefer another grading company like BGS, SGC, CGC, TAG, Arena Club, or some other company, go for it. It's your preference, but we're gonna cover PSA today. And lastly, if you hear a little banging in the background, you might see we've got some construction going on here, so we're gonna power through this and do our best to suppress that sound during this video. Now let's get into some simple rules for how you should consider grading. All right, so when I'm evaluating cards to get graded for potential profit, or at least to make sure that I'm not wasting my money, I have 5 simple rules, and I'm gonna walk you through all of those right now. And rule number 1, the card must be $25 raw minimum, and it must be $100 or more in a PSA 10. In other words, if the card is less than $100, really that $25 to $50 to maybe $75 range, I'm looking for a high enough multiplier to ensure that I'm actually going to make money on the card and not waste my money and potentially lose even if I get a 10. So typically like a 3 to 4x multiplier on those cards under $100. So let me give you an example of a card that would not be smart to grade in terms of whether or not you want to make money, or this would violate my rule. This is Laiatu Latu. I always have to pause to say his name correctly. And he's a defensive end for the Indianapolis Colts, who was drafted last year in the first round. And this is his 2024 Optic Rookie Kings. These are short printed, some say super short printed. And in raw condition, $30. But in PSA 10 condition, only $70. So the math will not check out on this card once you pay for shipping, once you pay for the grading costs, once you pay for everything fully loaded. Plus, there's the risk that it comes back $34, worth $34 in a PSA 9 condition. I wouldn't mess around with a card like this. Let's contrast that with a card that I would consider getting graded. And this is Patrick Mahomes, a raw score rookie card, just his base rookie card from 2017. I don't always advocate getting like a score base rookie card graded, but when we're talking about the greatest QB of this generation in Mahomes, it can make financial sense, and it can just make sense if you want to have that card in your collection. Raw, this card would set you back $27. In a PSA 10, you're gonna get $127. And even in a 9, this card's going for more than raw, at least, which is more than we can say for a lot of PSA 9s in today's market. For whatever reason, the market has decided it's 10 or bust. In many cases, probably because of how many copies are graded of different cards. And then another thing that I like about this is if you look at the pop count, this is pop 2367 in a 9, pop 3324 in a 10. That tells me this card generally grades pretty well. It's getting at least a 50% gem rate, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a few moments. So that's my first rule. If you're looking at cards in that price range and you want to get them graded, keep in mind the cost to grade, which I'll unpack a little bit more later in this video. but that's kind of an easy rule to follow. At least $25 raw, and it must go for at least 4 times that if it's in that lower price range. If you start getting above like $60, $70, you still want kind of like a 3x multiplier in PSA 10 condition. Second rule, and this is kind of related. If it's over $100 raw, then I start to tighten up that multiplier. I look for at least a 2 to 2.5x, 2.5x multiplier as a PSA 10. So here's another example of a card I wouldn't want to send for grading. This is Victor Wembanyama 2024 Prism Sublime. And in raw condition, this card's gonna set you back about $100. But in PSA 10, it's only $189. And in a 9, it's only $79. This happens. This is not a rare occurrence. It's super bizarre. This is kind of the sports card hobby in a nutshell. It's highly irrational on the secondary market. And overall, I just wouldn't mess around with a card like this. It's a cool card if you wanted to. Honestly, if I was getting one of these for my PC, just for my PC, I'd go buy a PSA 9. I always say 9s are fine. Even if you gotta have the 10, just buy it, just buy it. Don't take the risk that you're gonna send in a raw copy and it's gonna come back a 9 and then you're out like another $50. You might as well have just bought the 10 yourself. Let's compare that to a card that I would consider. And this is a really good example of one that's worth going after in general. So this is Patrick Mahomes 2023 Zenith Zoom. In PSA, in raw condition, $103. In PSA 9, $203. And in PSA 10, $316. So there's not a ton of these. If I look at the total sales, we're looking at, let's look at even the last 90 days. Number of sales is what I really wanted. So there's been 12 of these raw. There's been 3 of these in 9 condition. And you can see that average sales price is holding steady, $200 for the 9. There have been other copies in raw condition, I guess the average of $184. But even still, that's one that, you might, if you can find one definitely in this price point, down in that $100 range, I would definitely go after that. I would scoop that, and then I would send it in for grading. All right, third rule is going to be I avoid sets that have an under 50% gem rate. The higher the gem rate, the better. You're trying to get that PSA 10 to ensure that it makes financial sense to send that card for grading. I've referenced gemrate.com many times in the past. If you go to gemrate.com and you click, hover over grader pop data and go to set breakdown, you can type in any set and it'll give you all the population count data for that. Now, there's set level data and then there's player level data. And I will tell you, not all players grade the same within a set. So I start at the highest level, which is the product, and then you can get into the specific players and even into the specific variations, which sometimes have condition sensitivity issues, especially if they have dark borders or other things. So when I look at this set, 2024 Prism, if you go look at the PSA 10 pricing information, you'll notice that PSA 10s sell for significantly more than raw copies and PSA 9s, and it's because the gem rate in this set is only 29% across the board. I hate to say it, it's inexcusable. It's completely inexcusable to have a high-end product like Prism that costs you $800, $1,000, $1,200 a box, and then ship it out to the consumer, and they actually get a good hit, even if it's just like a silver Jaden Daniels, and they pull it out and it's gonna be PSA 9 or PSA 8 condition because the centering is way off or because the cards are just all jacked up in the pack. We expect more from the manufacturers. We expect a much higher gem rate. I don't know what the problem is. I don't have any insight into card manufacturing, but there's got to be a better way, as the song goes. So let's compare that to a set that is a much higher gem rate. This is 2018 Topps Allen and Ginter, which has an 80% gem rate overall. 80% on this product. And over the last 30 days, this is a nice thing too, you can see 68%. That makes sense. More and more 2018 copies, the longer we go, the fewer these are like fresh pack pulled, the more odds there might be damage, or just fewer raw copies in circulation. Maybe many of them have been graded. When I did that video in the past on how to evaluate cards that I referenced earlier, the card that I pointed to, and I bought one on eBay, was this 2018 Allen and Ginter, Topps Allen and Ginter Shohei Ohtani. And this is a really good candidate to get graded in general. You have to look at the condition, but raw, these sell for like 35 to 50 bucks, depending, okay? Right now they're a little hotter because Ohtani's super hot. In PSA 9, $85 right now. And you're looking at like $65 over the last 30-day average, okay? And then PSA 10 condition most recently sold for $187, 30-day average of $153. But why do I like this card? There's only 484 of these in a 9, whereas there's over 2,800 of them in a 10. This card follows the trend of the set and has a very, very high gem rate. This is the one that I sent during that video to PSA, and when I got it back, it was a PSA 10, and I turned a profit on it. So if you can find these in good condition raw, even on eBay, it's worth taking a stab at. Now, I want to show you an example, though, of one that I wouldn't just pull the trigger on. One, it's a little high based on the recent pricing at $65, but this one's clearly off center. You can see left to right. In fact, I'll just open this in a new tab so we can see it larger. This is way off center, left to right, like way off center. Unless it's because the way they took the picture, now that I'm looking at it, this side's actually cut off. You can't actually even see the edge of the picture. That might not be doing this seller any justice, or maybe he's, I don't know, he or she's trying to hide something. I have no idea. But as it stands, it looks like this card's like 75-25, 70-30. It's not going to get a PSA 10. I wouldn't want to send that one off. All right, rule number 4, no brand new products unless I happen to have ripped it myself, because if you're not first to market with new graded cards, you can lose a lot of money waiting for your cards to get back from PSA. What does everybody do? All the breakers, they all rip the product and everything. They send it in. There's a glut of supply that goes to PSA and the other grading companies. And then it sort of all hits the market at the same time when those submissions start coming back. So unless you happen to hit a card that is worth paying for an expedited service level, it doesn't really make sense a lot of times. You can lose a lot, like I said, waiting. And the backlogs right now are very real with PSA. New products go down a ton over the first few months. I'll give you some examples here. So here's 3 cards that all of you would be very familiar with, I'm sure. We got Victor Wembanyama's PSA 10 Prism base card. We got a Paul Skeens Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10 rookie card. And we've got Jaden Daniels base Prism rookie card. There's a theme here. And the theme is, look at the starting price of all of these, and then just how much they come down, 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 down. They all come down. This is what I did, is I hit the all data button here on Market Movers on this chart to show you, going all the way back, how much, where these things started and then where they've come to. And the Wemby's down 78%. The Skeens is down 82%. The Jaden Daniels is down 89%. So just be careful. And what I definitely wouldn't do is like 2 or 3 or 4 or even 6 weeks into a product having been released, I wouldn't be out on eBay buying like base cards, base refractors, even necessarily silvers and other things raw to try to send them in for grading, because you're going to miss the window. There's like this big glut of supply, unless you plan on holding them for much longer. But I'm talking about kind of that process where typically you're churn and burn. You want to grade, submit, or submit, get them graded, and then sell them and maybe keep some for your collection to help fund that. That's another rule that I follow. And then lastly, the 5th rule, beware of fees and additional costs. This is where it is simple math. And I'm going to show you a scenario here, a couple of different scenarios. So the first one, let's say your raw cost for the card is $25. Sales tax here in Georgia, and I know in Michigan and other states, 6%, figure out whatever that is. Grading cost, $27. There's a caveat to that. If you send in more copies, you can reduce that. And then shipping and insurance, I just put at $15. This is assuming you were going to send in a single card. So there's another part to that aspect too. And then let's say that PSA 10 sale violates that rule and is only $75. That's the first scenario. And basically what's going to happen is you're going to pay eBay fees if you sell it on eBay of another 15%, $11.25. And then even if you hit that coveted Gem Mint PSA 10, you're going to lose $5. So that's why I have all those different rules. If it's $25 and it sells for $100, and then you're going to pay $15 in fees, you're still only going to make $17. That's not really a good value proposition. If that card is a $50 card and it sells for $150, still a 3x multiplier, okay, now you're starting to get into the profit territory, but I would want this to be a card that I'm very confident is going to gem. High gem rate on the set and a strong evaluation on my part to know I feel very confident this is going to get a 10. And then lastly, the one that I put in green is this one, which is a card that would be $50 raw and would sell for $200 in a PSA 10, and then you're going to make $75 if you sell that card. That's a pretty good one. Another note here, capital gains tax. Now, if you're paying capital gains, then you can deduct your sales tax that you paid as part of your cost basis. But if you're selling on eBay and you're selling a bunch of stuff, you're going to get a 1099 and you're going to have to pay taxes on those proceeds as well. So keep that in mind. Now, what about a different scenario? What if you don't want to sell on eBay? What if you just want to sell to your local card shop? Well, typically your LCS is going to pay you 70% or maybe 80% if you're getting store credit. Maybe if it's a really high demand card, sometimes they'll work with you and pay you more, whether it's at the card shop or at a show. But go through that scenario again, and in almost all these cases, you're going to lose 16 bucks. You're going to only make $1.50. You're only making 10 bucks. Even in this last scenario, where you buy the card for 50 bucks and you sell it for 200, or it goes for 200, I should say, in PSA 10, but then you're only selling it for 140 to the card shop. You make 45 bucks. Maybe if you already have the 10, it makes sense. If you just want that cash or that store credit, or you're, trading a bunch of stuff into the shop to get a card that you've got to have there, keep that in mind. But this is really important. This is sort of the reality, and this is the most sobering one of everything. It's just the math. And I understand. I'm a realist. Like, honestly, the cards that I buy are not super expensive. Like, typically the most expensive card that I'm buying is $200, which I understand is still that's still a lot of money to many of us. I buy a lot of lower dollar cards. I like to chase things that I think have good eye appeal for players and teams that I like, that I can put on my shelves that you've seen in my office at home. And then occasionally I consolidate and I put stuff in and I might go for a larger card. But this is the reality of grading. Grading can be a great profit vehicle, but if you don't sort of have a larger starting budget to go after, it can actually cause you to lose even more of your hobby budget if you're not following some of these simple rules. The last thing I want to show you is kind of pricing. I mentioned here some additional tips. So from a pricing perspective, you can go through our grading service, which is a partnership that we have with Got Baseball Cards, another card shop local to Atlanta. They do pickups and drop-offs weekly here at Cards HQ, and you can send them here, or you can send them directly to Got Baseball Cards. But if you go to sportscardinvestor.com/grading, you will see that the PSA pricing is $27 a card if you submit 1 to 9 cards. It's $23 a card if you submit 10 to 19. So imagine a scenario where you have 9 and do the math on 9 times 27. It's going to actually make more sense to just find another card to consider getting graded and send it in. And then it's $22 a card if you send in 20 or more. If you go through PSA directly, you need to get a Collectors Club membership for many of these or for some of these. And then there's this value bulk where you can get for $21.99, $22 a card. 65 business day turnaround. That's what I was kind of pointing out too. There's a 20 card minimum to send these in. And then if you want to do the value on any card, it's $28 a card. So in many cases, you can submit with us and it'll actually save you money. So that's something really important to consider. Now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to talk to you. If you're not confident evaluating the condition of your card, or if you're like me and you just want a second opinion, then I recommend Got Baseball Cards or any similar bulk submitter that does this, where you can pay $3 per card to actually have those cards evaluated by them. It's up here, right here. This pass-fail pre-screening is $3 a card. So what does that mean? Basically, let's say you send in the 10 cards, and that's $30 to get all of them pre-screened by their team, who, by the way, look at thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of cards every year. And maybe they flag 2 of the bad ones. They're going to say, we don't recommend getting these graded, and that's going to save you $50 that you would have paid. Now, there's the 10 versus the 8 thing. Okay, put that aside. You're going to save 50 bucks for not sending in 2 cards that would have not come back PSA 10 in fees. So it's worth it. I've done this many times. Their team looks at it, they catch something that I didn't see, a surface scratch, or they go, hey, Tide, like this, the centering just doesn't look as good as maybe you thought it did. It's nice. It's nice to have an extra set of eyes on those. So sometimes the best decision can be not to grade certain cards. And then, like I said, the other thing is, just the bulk and cost optimization. It definitely makes sense if you can submit multiple cards. Okay, maybe you don't have 10 cards to submit, but you have a friend that's local to you that wants to send in their order with you. Go ahead and do that. I used to do that all the time with a buddy of mine in Michigan. And then another tip is kind of just timing. I would try to say grade before the hype. not during it. That goes back to that rule of like not buying new product or not grading new product. Now, if you have stuff in baseball, for example, like a prospect card before their debut, try to get it and have it in hand so that you can get it listed or sell it to your local shop or whatever after the call up happens and after their prices almost always spike during that call up. And again, just keep in mind the PSA turnaround timing, whatever, any company, I don't care who it is, just keep that in mind. Like, no, be very realistic. Like right now I'm banking on 3 to 4 months is like sort of my mental clock. That way I'm not going to be disappointed. Almost setting like an internal, under promise, over deliver, hoping that it'll come back sooner. And I've got a lot of videos that I'm doing that are related to grading different products. So that's always something to keep in mind. So that's pretty much it. Those are my 5 rules. Wanted something simple that you can follow, and hopefully that helps you. Grading is as much about perfection as it is just probabilities overall. So let that gem rate data be your guide. Use market movers to determine the value of raw compared to PSA 9 and PSA 10. Don't assume that getting a PSA 10 is automatically profit for you. And if you want access to all of this data, go to marketmoversapp.com, use promo code DIVE. You'll get 14 days free and then 20% off for life. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.